Hey y'all, today on the farm, the hurricane down in the Gulf is bearing down on us. It is now Tuesday afternoon at this point. Hurricane's supposed to be here, the eye of the storm, right here on Thursday morning. We should be getting some rains late Wednesday afternoon. So we have began harvesting the grain sorghum here at the shop. We gotta get 95 acres of grain sorghum gone and 40 acres of soybeans right over there gone before the rains and the hurricanes fall, because a hurricane will totally wipe out the crops. The crop is fully dried down, both soybeans and the grain sorghum, and once they have dried down and are ready to harvest, they can't get wet, because if they get wet, those seeds, the soybeans and the grain sorghum seeds, will germinate, and then they are no good. So we are in a full-blown race against the clock to harvest these crops. If you've been keeping up along this season, this is a no-till grain sorghum crop. I had wheat in this field. We harvested the wheat. It started raining during the wheat harvest. We fell in here with the planter. So while the combine's on this end of the field, combining wheat, the planter was on that end planting grain sorghum. We planted right behind the combine. It rained the day before we planted, and it rained the day after we planted. So we got a really good stand with no till whatsoever. I was pleased with that. Now the question is, what kind of yield are we gonna get? What you reckon is yield?
I would say overall average. I'd say around 70 bushels.
About 70 bushels, that's good. I'm pleased with 70 bushels, especially on dry land and no tillage. What is the highest number? You see any high numbers?
Yeah, I've seen some 95.
Woo! Some of these low spots out there up on the water. This field here, the owner that had it back 20 years ago, all my life before that, old lady, she had cows on it for a long time. Where all these other fields around here have been in regular row crop for 80 years before this field went into row crop. So this field looks like, when you till it, it's got more topsoil in it than all these other fields. So all the other fields look really red, and this one's got a lot of actual good soil left on top of that red.
This ain't been row crop to death.
That's right, it had to be row crop to death. And I let it lay out 4 or 5 years in grass. Ended in last year I put it back in the peanuts, but it had been in grass for 4 years leading up to that. So it gets laid out here a bit. 4 years before it was grass, it was peanuts 1 year, and it was 3 years in grass before that. So it's done a lot of laying out. Do you cut grain sorghum every year? How do you cut sorghum down here in the south?
I cut some last year, and it probably been 2 or 3 years since I cut it.
That's not that often.
Yesterday, Mr. Lewis was growing some, but he hadn't sold plantations down around Tallahassee.
Back in the 80s and 90s, everybody down here grew.
We did.
It was all along. The pigs was here, but then the pigs left, and no commercial pork, no grain sorghum.
That's it.
I had a guy ask me, he saw we was growing grain sorghum on the internet, and he said, what do y'all plan on doing with it? Here in, I think he said Zimbabwe, it's a big food source.
Yeah.
Like, what in the world y'all eating grain sorghum? He said they make it like we do popcorn, and they eat it in soup, and they have several different things they do with grain sorghum there.
Really?
Yeah, I said, man, we feed quail, and we feed pigs.
Yeah.
That's what it's primarily done here in the U.S. That and gluten-free flour. So if you eat gluten-free bread, anything gluten-free that normally would have wheat in it, it's made with grain sorghum instead of wheat. What is the easiest to do? You got every combine, corn, wheat, soybean, grain sorghum, corn. Our grain sorghum's running the least amount of material through the machine.
Yeah, pretty much so. Soybeans, yeah, I got to be if you on good level rain.
folks don't realize it, but when you're cutting wheat and when you're cutting soybeans, it'll eat the tires up on these big machines. You don't think of wheat stubble being that bad, but it will some more wear out your tires on the combine. Mr. Randy was just talking about the air conditioner in these combines. Randy's never had any issues with this one here in this particular combine. Dad ran a gleaner a lot. His brothers run gleaners back in the 80s, early 90s, and it seemed like the air conditioner was always torn up or about to tear up or was just got fixed. But one thing you don't realize with tractors, it doesn't matter what time of year it is or what the outside temperature is, you have to run an air conditioner. We're running a subsolar down here, so it's February and March. You still run the air conditioner because you got a 200 or 300 horsepower heater that cab is sitting on top of, and your cab is nothing more than a big greenhouse. And so all these windows are letting the sun in. Cab sitting on top of 300 horsepower motor is pulling, and so even when it's cold outside, it's hot in here. It's always hot here. You'll see that's why Mr. Randy's got his windows tinted to keep some of that sunlight out of this big greenhouse. But you cannot run a tractor or a combine in the deep south, regardless of what day of year it is, what temperature it is, if you don't have a running air conditioner. You can get these doors open and you might make another round, but then you're hot and dusty. Got to have a good operating air conditioner to run down here. We are loading 18-wheelers and gravity flow trailers today. Mr. Randy owns a trucking company and he's loading his trucks. We're sending them down the road, but they have to go an hour one way, unload, and come an hour back. And we don't have time for the combine to sit still. So in lieu of him being parked waiting on a truck to arrive, I got my gravity flows out here. I'm hauling them to the bin so he can have somewhere to dump, because we cannot let that green machine sit still, not with the hurricane bearing down. That thing's got to keep moving as long as possible. So we're dumping on anything and everything. I've called all my neighbors that want to buy some grain sorghum. They come in here dropping side dumps and putting on them, and we're sticking this stuff anywhere we can find to put it. Y'all think this 1500 Chevy's gonna pull two of these side bodies loaded down? We're about to find out. My 3/4 ton is in the shop right now. I hit a deer with it, tore the front end, all the crap and back. So 3/4 tons out of commission. We're about to see what this 1/2 ton will do with two fully loaded gravity flows. These two gravity flow wagons fully loaded is about 22 to 23,000 pounds with this sorghum on it at the current moisture level. Getting them moving and continuing their motion down the road isn't the issue. The issue is stopping it. The 3/4 ton truck I have, the 2500, is a much heavier truck, has much larger brakes, has a heavier duty transmission, and so it can handle stopping heavy loads. The 1/2 ton can move 20,000 pound loads. I know this from experience. It can also tear transmission up. I know that from experience as well. So the key here today with pulling these 20+ thousand loads is long, slow stops and very slow, gradual accelerations. We want to keep the transmission intact, and we want to be able to make this turn in up here at the grain bin. I don't know if it's true or not, but I've heard a tale that my extended family member, I'm gonna call him second cousin twice removed, I don't know what the exact title will be, but Thomas Lumpkin over outside Cuthbert, Georgia, I've heard he can back 2 of these gravity flow wagons hooked together. I've heard it from a reliable source that he can back them under a shed in the rain. I hadn't seen it done, but if y'all know somebody that can back a pair of these wagons, say something about it in the comments, because that is a very, very fine skill set to be able to back tandem wagons. Before I cut this auger on, I'm gonna go ahead and crack this door and let some grain flow in here. You don't want to run your augers empty. Just leaving your auger running with no grain in, that wears the auger out. The auger is just a big auger inside of a pipe, and so it's rubbing against that pipe. It's wearing out every second that it's running that there's not grain in it. So I will go ahead and crack this kind of slow, and there'll be grain flowing in it. And while that grain's flowing, I'm gonna run over here, jump on the tractor, engage the PTO. I will then come back over here, get a little more grain flowing, get up to full grain capacity, and then bump the speed up on the tractor so then we get going full bore. I don't want it being full bore and not being loaded with grain. This swing auger is made to swing up under an 18-wheeler, so there's a hopper part on top of it jumping all over the middle of it. I don't use it like that. I use it to swing out to a gravity flow, and so with all the grain jumping on one end, if I don't put this board over it, the grain is bouncing out all out here. There'll be grain, sorghum, or corn, or soybeans all over the ground. So I always dump on one end and have a large sheet of plywood in the middle to keep all my grain from hopping out. Putting grain sorghum in the bin is never a good idea. Grain sorghum likes to stick to the walls of the grain bins, even at a low moisture. No one likes grain sorghum in a bin. When you go to get it out, you will be coughing up blood. It has a fine dust on it that you will breathe in. It will make your lungs bleed. So grain sorghum bin is not the optimal situation, but we don't have enough trucks to keep you moving, so we're going to have to put some in the bin. And if you're going to put some in the bin, you're going to blow air on it. Now typically we would let the whole floor get covered in a grain before we cut the air on, because the air just blow around it. The entire floor has holes in it. But with grain sorghum, it's very difficult for the air to move through it, and so we take every opportunity to blow air through it. So the second the grain starts falling in there, we cut the air on, and if it's not raining, the air is blowing until we get this crap out. I'm planning on hauling all this out directly after the hurricane, and I will have to cut the fan off while the rain is falling, and I'm dreading that moment because this stuff will stick together and it won't come out of the bin then. Here we go. Between me hauling the gravity flow trailers and the semi taking loads down the road, we're still not able to keep Mr. Randy moving. He's still stopping and waiting. Every time I pull up, the combine's sitting here loaded. He's twiddling his thumbs, waiting on somewhere to dump it. I don't know if we're gonna get it all cut today or not. We need 2 or 3 more semi trucks, what we need. The moisture has risen on the grain sorghum. We've lost sunshine. We got a heavy cloud cover. Moisture started bumping up around 18%. That's too high. The moisture needs to be below 15 for me to sell it. It really needs to be 13 for me to put it in my bin. And so we've made the decision here to stop harvesting the grain sorghum. We believe if one of the 2 crops, the grain sorghum or the soybeans, has to weather the hurricane, the grain sorghum is in the best condition to try to attempt that feat. The soybeans will not make it. So it's about 4:30, 4:45 on Tuesday. We're aborting mission on the grain sorghum, heading to the soybean field to get set up over there. We're gonna have to get all them beans out tomorrow. They're gonna get started on that tomorrow. I don't think they're gonna pick anything down. I think they're just gonna get moved. Meanwhile, I'm gonna be trying to get all these gravity flow trailers empty. I got several. Gotta get them all stone cold empty. Gotta make sure all the grain in the bin is covering the floor evenly so that the fan will work properly. And we gotta start battening down the hatches. I'm gonna leave this auger up until tomorrow, but I'm going to leave all 3 of the side dumps parked down the hill behind the bins, out of the wind, with the doors open so any rain can just wash right on through. Try to clean all the grain out we can, try not to leave any in any crevasses or anywhere in there, because it is gonna get wet and it's gonna rot and it's gonna smell right, and it'll make the inside the trailer begin to rust with that rotten grain there. So parking all the trailers down the hill. This is what we call less than optimal situation. This grain in here, because there's a little bit on the higher end of moisture, the stalks were not dried down, and so it was very hard to set the combine to get no organic material in there other than the actual grain sorghum. The grain sorghum itself is dry, but that green material, that plant material, is not. And so now we have a higher than 13 moisture in the bin. The actual moisture in the bin is closer to 17 or 18. And that is near worst case scenario in grain sorghum. That's bad. So, got the air rolling, but you see we're a lot shallower around the walls. That's as to be expected than we are in the middle. And to try to make this air push through here evenly, you know, because it'll take the easiest route, just like water will. And so the air will flow around these places where it's not a lot of grain and go out the top. And the places where there is a lot of grain won't get dried at all from the fan. No air will push through that. So that stuff will go bad. So gonna walk it down, get in here and walk it down, make this stuff flow off the top of the ridge up there and flow down here around the walls, get it kind of walked down a little bit. I'm gonna leave that top portion of that door open overnight, let that moisture get out. I got both top doors open way up yonder on the bin. I think I'm gonna come back up here with a few 5-gallon buckets, get a little chicken feed, a little bit of that to feed my chickens. I think my chickens are getting low. But after that, I've been standing on a water hose for a minute, y'all. Drain some cold water. Day 2 of hurricane prep begins in the morning. See y'all then.